Good evening. In a major legal setback for the White House, a federal judge in New Hampshire has issued a nationwide preliminary injunction blocking President Trump's executive order that sought to end birthright citizenship. The ruling, from U.S. District Judge Joseph LaPlante, effectively preserves the status quo for now and, importantly, grants class action certification to all infants in the United States who would have been impacted by the president's directive. The executive order, signed by Mr. Trump on the first day of his second term in January, instructed all federal agencies to cease issuing citizenship documents to children born in the U.S. to undocumented immigrants or to parents who are not U.S. citizens or lawful permanent residents. In his decision, Judge LaPlante argued that denying citizenship would inflict irreparable harm and represents a fundamental change to a long-standing policy rooted in the 14th Amendment of the Constitution. This development follows a Supreme Court ruling from earlier this year. In that case, the High Court's 6-3 decision did not weigh in on the constitutionality of birthright citizenship itself, but instead ruled on procedure, stating that any plaintiffs seeking such broad, nationwide relief must first file their case as a class action lawsuit. The plaintiffs in New Hampshire did just that, leading to yesterday's injunction. The Trump administration is expected to appeal the ruling immediately, which will likely send the contentious issue back up through the appellate courts and, quite possibly, to the Supreme Court for a definitive decision on the constitutional question. From one contentious legal front to another, the Department of Justice is taking new action on a deeply divisive social issue. The DOJ announced on Wednesday that it has issued more than 20 subpoenas to various clinics and individual doctors involved in providing transgender medical procedures to children. While the department has not disclosed the names of those being subpoenaed or the specific information it is seeking, it confirmed the subpoenas are part of ongoing investigations into potential healthcare fraud, the making of false statements, and other related offenses. In a strongly worded statement, Attorney General Pam Bondi declared that, quote, medical professionals and organizations that mutilated children in the service of a warped ideology will be held accountable by this Department of Justice, end quote. This federal action is a direct follow-up to a memorandum Bondi circulated on April 22nd. That memo instructed federal prosecutors nationwide to actively investigate and, if warranted, prosecute individuals and entities that profit from providing what the administration refers to as gender-affirming care. The Attorney General's memo described these procedures as the surgical and chemical maiming of young patients who, she argues, often come to regret their transitions later in life. This move by the DOJ escalates the debate from the state level, where a patchwork of conflicting laws exists, to a national stage, signaling a determined effort by the federal government to scrutinize and regulate these medical practices. The administration's efforts to reshape federal policy are also evident at the Department of Agriculture. The agency announced it will no longer consider a farmer's race or sex when determining eligibility for benefits in many of its key programs. In a final rule published on July 10th and effective immediately, the USDA is officially ending its decades-long use of the socially disadvantaged designation. This classification was originally created to address and remedy the effects of historical discrimination against farmers of color and women, giving them a degree of priority in accessing federal support. A broad range of USDA initiatives are affected by this change, including critical farm loan programs, conservation efforts, disaster relief aid, and various rural development initiatives. The department did specify, however, that existing benefits and programs tailored for beginning farmers and for military veteran farmers will remain in place. In its regulatory note, the USDA cited decades of lawsuits, legal settlements, and various reforms addressing claims of discrimination as part of the basis for this policy shift. Supporters of the new rule say it creates a more equitable, colorblind system, while critics express concern that it could reverse progress for farmers from marginalized groups who have historically struggled to gain a foothold. Shifting from domestic regulations to international trade, President Trump has announced a significant new tariff targeting a key U.S. ally and trading partner. The president said yesterday that he will be imposing a blanket 35% tariff on all Canadian imports, with the new rate scheduled to go into effect on August 1st. The president revealed the move in a letter addressed to Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney, which was subsequently posted on Trump's Truth Social platform. In the letter, the president directly connected the new tariff to the ongoing fentanyl crisis in the United States. He wrote, quote, "The United States imposed tariffs on Canada to deal with our nation's fentanyl crisis, which is caused in part by Canada's failure to stop the drugs from pouring into our country." He added that Canada had retaliated with its own tariffs in past disputes instead of working with the U.S. This new action marks a major escalation in trade tensions, moving beyond the sector-specific tariffs of the past to a broad-based measure that will impact nearly all goods crossing the border from Canada. The move is expected to cause significant disruption to North American supply chains and could lead to higher prices for American consumers on everything from lumber and automotive parts to agricultural products, while also risking a new round of retaliatory tariffs from Ottawa. Finally, we have an update on the investigation into a shocking event from last year's presidential campaign. The U.S. Secret Service has suspended 6 of its agents over what the agency's deputy director is calling an operational failure that led to the assassination attempt on then-presidential candidate Donald Trump. The announcement came from Deputy Director Matt Quinn during an interview with CBS News on Wednesday. The incident occurred almost exactly 1 year ago, on July 13, 2024, at a campaign rally in Butler, Pennsylvania. A would-be assassin managed to position himself on a nearby rooftop and open fire on the event. A bullet grazed Mr. Trump's right ear before Secret Service agents rushed him off the stage. The attack was the first time a current or former U.S. president had been wounded in an assassination attempt since Ronald Reagan in 1981. While the former president survived, the attack was deadly. Firefighter Corey Comparatore, who was in the audience, was killed in the shooting, and 2 other spectators were critically injured. The gunman was fatally shot at the scene by a Secret Service counter-assault sniper. The suspension of these 6 agents marks the first public disciplinary action to come from the agency's ongoing internal review of the security protocols that failed on that day.